Well, let's get started then. So what we need to do is we need to install Express-Validator. So let's do that. There we go. And luckily for us, we already learned what middleware was and is, because Express-Validator, one of the ways that you can use it to have input validations is with middleware. So as a quick refresher, middleware are basically just functions, kind of like handlers really, that just run before a handler would run. And they have the ability to have control flow on what middleware is, and whenever they're done, so they can pass it to the next middleware. They have that ability. But they have the same power that a handler does. They can respond, they can log, they can enhance the request object. They can do all different types of things. So we're going to use middleware as validators for the posts and the puts for all the routes that we already created. So let's do that. So let's walk through this list here. First one that I see is we have a put request for a product with an ID of whatever the ID is going to be. So we want to make sure we validate the input. So the first thing first is we need to make sure, we need to figure out what are we going to allow a user to update on the product, right? So if we go look at the schema, we go to product, what would we allow a user to update a product and what would we not allow a user to update on the product?
Just name and belongs to user. I mean, what user it belongs to.
Yeah, definitely name. We want them to be able to update the name and things like that. Belongs to, yeah, if we had a feature where we let you transfer the product to another user, then yeah, then we would allow you to update that. Otherwise, that would just get set when you created the product. So yeah, it really depends on what features we have. But I would say at minimum, name is definitely something we want to allow a user to be able to update. So our update route is checking for validation on that. And it's going to be up to us whether or not we require that, because is it the fact that you have to pass us every single possible combination of updates, or it has to be one of these? So we have to figure out what that is. Seeing how product only has one field that we can update for name, then that's the only one that we're going to require. We won't do this one because we're not going to have a feature that allows you to change it. We got to do some other stuff on the schema to get that to work. So let's do that. So the way this works is, if we look at the stuff that I have here, let me build this up. We can just import from Express-Validator. So I'm just going to import right here in the router. And we can go down to our put. And because when someone does a put request, a post request, a patch, or something like that, they're probably going to be sending up JSON, which is going to be attached to the body. We're going to use this body import from Express-Validator like this as middleware. So we can say body, that's a function, and then we can say the name of the field on the body object that we want to enforce. So what this is saying is rec.body, which is an object, should have a field on it called name. That's what this is saying. Right? Rec.body, which is an object, should have a field on it called name. And if it doesn't, we'll know. Does that make sense? All right? Okay. We could test this out right quick. We'll just make a little quick handler right here. Say rec res, just like that. And then really cool option is that we get to control when we want to do that validation. So the middleware itself won't actually respond with any errors or anything like that, because Express-Validator wants us as the creators to have control of how we want to send those errors back, which I think is really cool. So we can say, let's get those validations, right? So we can say, or let's say errors. We can say errors equal validation result, and you can just pass the whole request object like that. So the validation result given the request object is just going to try to validate based off of whatever we put here. So the way this works, if you think about how you know middleware works, what's probably happening here is that this middleware is attaching something to this request object that validation result then looks at to determine what validations it needs to check for, right? It could be an array of like, here are the validations you gotta check for, body.name, and it'll look for that. So that's what this middleware is doing. It's enhancing the request object. And then what we can do is we can check to see if there's errors or not. And if there are errors, then we can send those back. And if not, we can continue doing what we were gonna do anyway. So let's do that. We can say if not errors dot is empty. So if there aren't any errors, as in, like if it's not empty, that means there are errors. Then we want to do is we want to send back an error message. So I just sent back a 400 here. 400 status code just means bad request, which typically means you didn't send the right thing. That's typically what the 400 status code means. It's like, yeah, it's your fault, you didn't send the thing. And then I'm just going to send back some JSON with an errors field on it that will convert all the errors to an array. Okay, so let's try to trigger this. Let's see what happens. But remember, we have authentication now, so it's not going to be so easy just to hit it. So we got to like sign in, sign up. We got to do all that stuff just to try it. So, but let's do it. I'm going to start my server. Okay. And then I need to, I wonder if, I don't think I reset my database, so I still should be able to have, I think I still have all that stuff. Let's see. Oh wait, it's gone now. I got to do it again. Let me sign in. So I'm going to sign in. If you didn't reset your database, you can go to Thunder Client and you can sign in with the same thing, and you should just be able to get a JWT. So I'm just going to do that. I just can't remember if I reset my database or not. Oh, I didn't. Awesome. Cool. So got a JWT here. And then now I'm going to make a new request for a put. So I'm going to say HTTP/localhost 3001 in my case /API/product, and I have to put some ID here. It's actually not going to get to this point where the ID matters. We'll get to that when we get to the handlers. But if I don't put this ID here, it's going to try to do a put request to /API/product. And I don't think we have that route, right? We don't have a route for put to /API/product. It's /API/product/ID. So we would get a 404 if I didn't put an ID there, because there's no route for that. Does that make sense? We only have a route for a get request to /product, but not a put request to /product. So we would get a 404. So to trigger this route, I must put something after product. In this case, it's called ID. I just typed in something random because we haven't gotten to the point down here where we're actually using that ID. So it doesn't matter. But when we write the handlers, we will be using that ID. Okay, so let's try that. I'm going to go to auth. I'm going to click on bearer. I'm going to paste in that token. Get rid of my string. And let's send that. And I got, oh yeah, I didn't actually do the thing that I said I was going to do. There we go. Run that, and let's see what happens. So right now, it looks like it's just hanging, which means it's not responding to something. So let's see what's going on here. API products. Oh wait, let's look at the body. Okay, there we go. So let's go in here and add a log to route. Here we go. Let's add a log in here and see what the errors are doing, because I would imagine this would not be hanging. And instead, we should see errors. So maybe something isn't right. Let's see. So we'll run this again. See what happens. Go check out the log. Oh wait, it's there. It's just no errors. Okay, so it looks like everything here is mostly good, except now with Express Validator, you have to be explicit with the actual validation that you want when using the middleware. So in the case of body name, this no longer is actually going to trigger an error because there is no actual strict enforcement on it. So now you have to be explicit and say something like, oh, this should be a string. So now if I say body must have a property on it called name, which is type string, this will now trigger the error. So if we go run this back in the Thunder client and I run it, you can see that now we get back that object with the array of errors and the message. So invalid value, looking for a parameter called name on the body. So you can take this and format it however you want. It's up to you. It really just depends on what you're going to do with those errors. Like if this is an API for the front end and the front end is just going to consume the errors and put them on the screen, like this is really cool. But sometimes the front end is like more sophisticated and wants to do its own errors. But either way, I think it's nice just to be able to send back all the errors that happen, and then the front end can format that, whatever way that they want, just like they do with any other data. Okay. Any questions on Express Validator and how to use it to validate or invalidate inputs for requests like posts and put? Yep.
So this is the code we are going to write in every handler. I mean, we can abstract out this in.
You're thinking like so ahead, and I love it. Yeah, like I think ideally you would take all the input validators and put them in like their own module, and then that way it's just like here's the input validators. That way you can reuse them if you wanted to, because some of them might have the same, right? And you don't have to write them twice. So yeah, you probably would just abstract these out, put them in a file, bring them in whenever you need them. Maybe even combine a bunch of them because it's just middleware, right? So you can like put this in an array, and you can have as many of these as you want, and you can store that in some variable somewhere, and you can call this new user input validator or whatever. And every time a new user is created, you can use that. So yeah, there's no one way to do it. And there's a lot of different ways to abstract it out. But yeah, to keep it simple, I'll probably just be writing them in line here on the routes. That way we're not adding any more overhead of like organizing all the stuff. Yes?
Is the errors.array on line 19 coming from Express Validator?
Yeah, so this errors thing is an object. It has a bunch of functions on it, and it has an array method on it that just converts and formats all the errors to an array for you to consume. Yeah, this is not some built-in native thing in JavaScript. It's from the validation result.